Welcome back to the Hammer Down Breakdown following Purdue's big time victory, 83-78 over the Illinois Fighting Illini, the ninth ranked team in the country. You'll notice I have my assistant with me, Scout, wandering around as I went ahead and headed home to complete this Hammer Down Breakdown. Um, another big time win for the Purdue Boilermakers. I believe this is now the fifth or sixth different top 10 opponent that Purdue has defeated this year. Kind of going off the top of my head, you're looking at Arizona, Marquette, Tennessee, Gonzaga at the time, and now the Fighting Illini. So I'm going to say the fifth. I might be missing one in there. I might be giving someone too much credit, but somewhere between 4, 5, and 6. That is the makings of a obviously a number one seed in the NCAA tournament, but also a number one overall seed for the NCAA tournament. This game is definitely you kind of leave it obviously with your head held really really high for a number of different reasons, and then a little bit of a pause for some concerns as some of the things that we saw from this Purdue team last year kind of reared their head, but ultimately the Boilers end up getting a victory. So if you got a chance to read the three-pointer that was posted to Hammer and Rails earlier today, you would have seen that I made mention of four big keys for the Boilermakers in this game. The first one was take the emotion away from the Illini. They're still riding a little bit of this emotional high from the loss of Terrence Shannon Jr. Again, I'm not going to go into the reasons surrounding that suspension. They're widely known, but obviously a lot of people in I'm not going to say in that program, but around the program and fans seem to think that that might have been, for whatever reason, unfairly and unjustifiably suspended. So there's a lot of obviously emotion surrounding that team as they sort of rally and condense around themselves. And Purdue did a really, really, really good job the first 5 minutes of each halves. That's what I made mention in that article that was posted today. Purdue continues to be one of the elite teams starting halves in terms of their points per possession in those first 4 to 5 minutes of each halves. And today they really showed and flexed their muscle in those first number of minutes where they were able to get out in front of the Illini 20-4 before the Illini were able to kind of claw their way back. I want to say, I've got some notes here that they battled down, being down 16. It was 22-6 at one point, and over the course of about 4 minutes there in the first half, they were able to battle all the way back to within just 3. And the Boilers were able to rebound. They were able to gain momentum again in the last several minutes of that first half, largely with Zach Edey on the bench with his 2 fouls. I'll get to that in a moment. But the Boilers were able to, again, extend that lead from 3 back up to 15 at the end of the first half. And they ended that first half up 47-32. Some things in that first half that I thought were really, really, really good, and some things that I didn't think were that great. First off, I thought the refereeing in the first half and even at times in the second half was just awful. Was not real great. There were times where they let the physicality, I think, go a little bit too much, but really took Zach Edey out of the game unnecessarily. Those first 2 fouls in the game were just really, really, really bad foul calls. The over the back call, if you go back and look at it, Zach Edey is actually not squarely behind. I believe it might have been Coleman Hawkins at that time. He's actually more to his side, and Zach is straight up. And it's not an over the back if you're just tall. And again, this is one of those first instances this year that we've seen where Zach just kind of got a "you're too big, you're too tall" foul. The next one, the second one, where Draven Gibbs Lawhorn trips, and they call Zach for a foul. That's a bad call. And that takes Zach Edey out of the game. That's really when, in that first half, Illinois was able to go on that run. And credit to Purdue, though. The Illini, and credit to the Illini as well. They took advantage of the opportunities that were there for them tonight. If Zach Edey stays on the floor and he plays his normal 32 to 34 minutes, I don't think this game isn't close. You know, if that doesn't happen, if Zach stays around 2 or 3 fouls for the game and he's able to play those 32 to 34 minutes like he probably would be around, Purdue probably wins this game by 15 to 20 or more points, and really puts a stamp down on the Big Ten moving forward. Instead, 2 bad first half foul calls on Zach, and he gets 2 more there in the second half. The third one that he got, that's a foul. That's a foul. But the fourth one, I think, was, and I fired off a tweet about this. It's probably really the first really bad play we've seen from Zach all year. There's been some mistakes, obviously, firing off some passes. He had a couple turnovers. Turnovers aren't necessarily bad plays. That was really probably the first really bad play we've seen from Zach, where, he knows he's got 3 fouls. Purdue's up 16. They've got control of the game, and a shorter player kind of comes and attacks him, drives at him, and instead of just standing tall and being 7'4" and 9.5 feet tall, standing vertically, he jumps and gets a foul call. And you could tell from his face, right after that, he was like, and that's again when Zach goes to the bench, when Illinois makes their big run again. But Zach ends up going to the bench. He only ends up playing 9 minutes in that first half, and I think ends up playing a total of 23 minutes total tonight. It's 10 minutes less than his normal average, and Purdue still ends up defeating a top 10 team. Even without Terrence Shannon Jr., is Illinois a top 10 team? I think they proved a whole lot today, but are they a top 10 team without him? I'd gladly say that they are a top 15 team. I think they are. I think clearly probably still the second best team in the Big Ten. But when Zach Edey's on the floor, there's nobody in the Big Ten. I don't think that is going to be able to beat them when he is on the floor and being effective like he was. 23 minutes, he ends up getting 10 points. He ends up grabbing 15 rebounds. If you're looking at his per 40-minute output at that point, you're looking at 30 or so rebounds. And his impact on the floor is obviously just blatantly obvious at this point. But that being said, Purdue proved a lot in this game that, Illinois might still be a pretty good team without Terrence Shannon Jr. Purdue is still a really, really, really good team when Zach Edey's not on the floor for extended time. And I think, that's been one of the big things that a lot of these national media pundits and so forth and other fans have said, well, Purdue, what is Purdue without, their 7'4" big guy in the middle? Well, Purdue's still a top 10 team. Purdue's still a top 10 team in the country, even without Zach Edey on the floor for long stretches. A couple of things in that first half, if you're going to call Fletcher Lawyer, and I know it's another refereeing crew, but if you're going to call Fletcher Lawyer for a flagrant 1, in the previous game, and you're going to call Lance Jones for, a flagrant one that I didn't even know referees could go back and assign a foul on an out of bounds call. That's something that I'm going to have to look at and maybe fire off a tweet a little bit more when I take a look at the NCAA guidelines on that. I don't think that they're able to do that off the top of my head, but I will say this: Matt Painter explained why it is a foul. Those of you saying that it's not a foul, in that instance, are we looking at as Scout is giving her she wants to get in here with her input. You could kind of see a foul being called both ways. You know, the way that Matt Painter explained it was when you get into legal box out position and you've got a guy behind you, you've got to jump, because if you don't jump and he jumps, that's going to be a foul every single time because you're undercutting an offensive rebounder. So by definition, that, yes, is a foul. However, when you do look at it, the guy does kind of jump over Lance's back. And that's not what the stoppage in play was for. They did not stop the play for a foul called. They stopped it for the out of bounds call that initially was called out of bounds on Mason. They went and reviewed that and then assigned a flagrant one. I don't think you're allowed to do that. I'm going to check that and see if that is actually reviewable. Outside of that, the ball didn't go off of Mason Gillis, I don't think. I'll have to look at another angle of that. But if you're going to assign a flagrant one on Fletcher, if you're going to assign a flagrant one on Lance in that second half, how are you not assigning a flagrant one to Illinois' player who gives a forearm shove to Mason Gillis on a rebound attempt while he's in the air? I don't know. I don't understand. And they even reviewed that and still did not assign even a foul, even a common foul, let alone a flagrant one. And in that situation, that is grounds for a flagrant two. That's what confuses me really more so about the flagrant one being assigned to Lance, when in the first half, literally in the same spot, Mason Gillis has his head bounced off the Mackey Arena floor by an Illinois player shoving him in midair. That's my personal issue with that call there in the second half and in that first half. We've all kind of wanted to see how Purdue would respond when Zach's in foul trouble. This is the first time really that he's been in foul trouble all year. Really where it impacted the game, and Purdue really, really, really showed a lot of grit, a lot of toughness. You've got to give Trey Kaufman-Ren a ton of credit in that first half, and really in that second half, taking control of the game, and really the first time you've seen all year where Purdue is running sets and running stuff for him. And he proved it last year when Edey missed a game due to illness, and he went out and scored 23, 24, 25 points or so. He's shown that he can be a guy that on the inside Purdue can go to in not the same way, but in similar ways that Purdue has gone to these big men the last number of years. Travion Williams, Zach Edey, Isaac Haas, AJ Hammonds, where they are a dominant inside post scoring threat. I would just have to say that, Trey has really expanded his game to be able to step out and be a really, really good 3-point shooter. In fact, he hits the last field goal that Purdue has at about 5 minutes. Purdue did not make a field goal over the last 5 minutes or so of that game. And the last one was Trey Kaufman-Ren big three that he hits at the top of the key. And in fact, Matt Painter in his post-game presser, kind of made mention of it, and he goes, he kind of stepped up and hit that like Ray Allen, and Matt Painter's like, he's like, oh, whoa, and that's Matt really gave him a lot of praise for his work ethic, getting in the gym and working on his free throws. Trey Kaufman-Ren was 6 of 7, hit 6 of 6, hit his first 6. free throws, and that's the most that he has hit in a game other than New Orleans last year, where he hit 8 free throws. And I think that might have actually been the game that Zach Edey missed last year, if I remember correctly. The next big point that I wanted to make here about this game is limiting the turnovers. Purdue only had 4 in the first half and did a really good job in just not having really bad turnovers. And in the second half, they end up having 8. And of those 8, probably 4 or 5 of those are just kind of like, just you gotta understand the situations, understand the flow of the game, and limit those bad turnovers where Illinois is kind of going on a run, and instead of giving them more opportunities, you've got to make sure that you're making crisp passes and you're not doing stuff outside of the realm of what you should be doing. Matt Painter also made mention of this, of Braden has done a really pretty good job this year so far playing on 2 feet and keeping his dribble, using his pivot when he does pick up his dribble on the inside. And for whatever reason, the last 2 games, he's gotten back to that freshman habit of getting off his feet and getting in the midair. And when he's done that, he's had a couple really bad turnovers. Out of his character, I think this year, maybe trying to do a little bit too much, but not cause for concern. Purdue's again at that 12 mark, and Matt Painter said if they can be around 12 turnovers, they're pretty solidly confident that they're going to be able to win a game as long as those 12 aren't some really, really, really bad, sort of as they kind of classify them as pick 6 turnovers. Marcus Damask is really, really showing he is a major threat as the primary scoring option for the Illini, having, I think, 36 or 37 against Northwestern. He goes for 26 tonight. He plays all 40 minutes, never came off the floor. That's big time. That's big boy basketball, as they would say. If he continues on this, if Terrence Shannon Jr. does miss a continued amount of extended time, and Damask is going to be asked to play in this way, Zach Edey may have some competition here for Big Ten Player of the Year. You cannot ignore what he's been able to do in even some previous games prior to Terrence Shannon Jr. being suspended. But if he's going to go out and get them 35, 36, 37, 26, 23, 19, and 28, you've got to really start looking at what he's going to be able to be doing. And in fact, Illinois may have ended up having like 2 All-American guards on that team at once when playing and pairing him with Terrence Shannon Jr. Also kind of makes you question, like, why was Southern Illinois not as much better than they were if they've got that guy and Lance Jones playing on the same team? But I digress with that one. But really what they did is they really ISO'd Damask at the end of that game when Zach had 4 fouls, and they kind of had to switch up their defensive concepts there. They really went at Fletcher Lawyer. They went at a number of other people, even going at Ethan Morton. And Damask is just really, really, really good when he kind of goes to that booty ball style where they kind of isolate 4 on one side. He's got the wing to himself, and he just kind of backs him down. And those wings aren't used to bodying up and using position to prevent a guy like that from just kind of getting into about 6 to 8 feet away, and then being 6'6", and being 225 pounds, he can just kind of turn and score. And that's what he did over, Lance Jones a couple times. He did it over Fletcher Lawyer. He did it on Braden Smith. He kind of scored over everybody tonight. And so he's just a really good player. And one of the things that I mentioned in the article was you got to limit his opportunities to isolate Fletcher, Braden, and Miles Colvin. Obviously, Miles Colvin didn't play a minute his first time not playing, but that's not even his own fault. Cam Heide played really, really, really well, and Ethan Morton played really, really well as well tonight. So, that's not necessarily a knock on Miles Colvin, more so along the lines of Cam Heide and Ethan Morton being sort of bigger bodied guys against a really tall, sort of big team. Just sort of was a better matchup for Purdue, especially when you had Trey Kaufman-Ren scoring at the way that he was, Edey dominating when he was in there as well. And a couple of things I do want to mention. You know, Purdue really, really, really did a good job on the offensive rebounds tonight. Probably won them the game tonight. 18 offensive rebounds. They end up getting 21 second chance points. That's kind of what we assumed would be the norm for Purdue coming into the season. And at times, for whatever reason, they have struggled getting offensive rebounds and really struggled rebounding the ball at times this year. I made mention of that after the Maryland game on here in the last Hammer Down breakdown, where it might have been more of a symptom of Zach Edey, 7'4". He's the reigning National Player of the Year. He'll get the rebound, and without him on the floor, I think guys like Trey Kaufman-Ren and Mason Gillis really made a concerted effort on both ends of the floor. Although Trey only gets 4 rebounds, 3 of those are offensive. And, with guys really making an effort because Zach is not on the floor, I think that bodes well for them moving forward. Other than that, this video is getting pretty long here. We're talking about 20 minutes or so now. I need to work on my length of time here on these videos. But who knows? Maybe you guys like the longer videos, longer breakdowns here. Moving forward, you have to be really, really, really excited about what Purdue showed at times today. Without Zach Edey on the floor, Purdue's able to take one of Illinois' best punches, and when they had it back down to 3, Purdue counter punches there to end the half and then goes up 15 and comes out again with Zach Edey on the floor, dominates in the early portions of that second half, and pushes the lead up to 21. And without him on the floor, you would like to see Purdue again counterpunch a little bit better when he's pulled off the floor, but to kind of claw and scratch their way to a victory there bodes well moving forward, especially in the Big Ten. You're going to get an opponent's best every single night. I think last year, on the road, most of those games, there were times where Purdue was favored by 9, 10, 11 points, even on the road or even at home. And sometimes Purdue's winning by 3, 4, or 5. This is a game that, as I mentioned before, without some just really questionable refereeing of Zach Edey and some other kind of really questionable calls, this game, if Zach Edey plays 32, 33, 34 minutes, this game's probably a 15 to 20 point victory for the Boilers. But again, credit to the Illini, credit to Brad Underwood and getting his team to fight back. They've obviously found a little bit of an edge since Terrence Shannon Jr.'s suspension, and something I think they may have lacked a little bit before then. But credit to the Illini. They're a really, really, really good team. They may go on to prove that they are a top 10 team, even without Terrence Shannon Jr., but I definitely put them squarely top 15, top 20, even after this game. They showed that against Northwestern, although Northwestern, I mean, if you go back and watch that game, it was pretty pathetic. But, coming into Mackey Arena, getting down 16, fighting back to 3, getting down 15, getting down 21, and then bringing it back again to 3 very, very late. That is a lot of credit to a very scrappy, very talented Illinois team. Very unique. It's a pretty unique team where, really long, pretty athletic. And you know what? I will mention this, and some of you out there in Boilerland may not like it, but a little bit of credit to Draven Gibbs, Lawhorn tonight. They made their runs when he was on the floor. In fact, in that first half, he was the only Illini player with a positive plus minus. So he brought a little, whatever it is, he didn't score. I don't think he scored tonight, but he brought a little bit of like an edge, a little bit of a really intense fire to the floor for obvious reasons, right? He's from the Lafayette area, committed to Purdue at one point, decommitted for whatever reason. I'm not about to bring about the wrath of someone of someone that's been on the warpath, so to say, the last week or so with Purdue fans. Um, but credit to him for helping the Illini crawl and scratch back in this game. Um, so, moving forward, you got to kind of like where Purdue is sitting at right now. 3-1 in the Big Ten, 14-1 overall, squarely the number one team in the country. They've got a big game coming up. Let's talk about that game coming up with the Nebraska Cornhuskers. The Cornhuskers are proving to be, a lot of people thought that they weren't very good. Oh, look who they're playing. They're not playing anybody. And the Cornhuskers right now might be the fourth best team in the Big Ten. You're talking Purdue, you're talking Wisconsin, you're talking Illinois. Nebraska might be right there. Nebraska very well could be right there. Ohio State's going to have something to say about that. Michigan State obviously is going to have something to say about that. But the Nebraska Cornhuskers might be. Right now, if I was Joe Lunardi and I was making a field of 68 teams here, I'd have to say. I'd have to move Nebraska out. I think he had them as like the first four out or the next four out. Now I'd have to kind of put Nebraska kind of squarely in at this point in time, and Purdue's going to get another real good shot to make a statement on the road in what's proving to be one of the better environments in the Big Ten out there in Lincoln, and so it'll be very interesting to see. What Purdue can do to a team, like Nebraska. So it's going to be, main event kind of stuff. You're going to get Kisei Tominaga versus Lance Jones, two of the more exciting players in the Big Ten. Kisei can go out there and throw up a 40 spot on people. He's a flat out scorer. Purdue fans know that more than any. He's dropped some big games on them. But then again, you've got one of the better perimeter defenders in Lance Jones coming into that game next week. So that's kind of where Purdue is at moving forward. And don't forget, continue checking back on hammerandrails.com for all your Boilermaker men's and women's basketball coverage. Although it may have gotten lost because it happened just before tip, Purdue did get two more verbal commitments from the portal from former University of Georgia. Yep, that Georgia wide receivers. So you're talking, this is now four different Georgia Bulldogs that have made their way up to West Lafayette. So continue checking in with Hammer and Rails and hammerandраils.com for all your news with Purdue football, with the players coming in and obviously players coming out. Boiler up. Have a good night.